what you do. It's who you are. We have to separate who we are from what we do. I'm a woman. I may be a doctor. Okay, maybe I've been given gifts and talents to become a doctor. But if I'm become a doctor and I want to be a mom and have 5 kids, then there's a conflict there, and I have to be able to make a choice.
Welcome, Mona, and I'm just so happy to have you here, and so excited to see you again. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing and why you have so many vehicles for educating moms and reaching out to moms?
Well, it goes back to my great desire for motherhood to be the value of motherhood, marriage, and womanhood to be restored. I kind of followed up behind the feminist movement. I was behind the cool kids, and I thought, oh, this is really neat. I want to be like this. And then I quickly found out this was dumb. And but I kind of ignored it and went my own way. But the feminist movement actually influenced us in a way that some of us don't even, all of us have been affected and influenced by the feminist movement. So what ended up happening was more and more women left the workforce. So motherhood was devalued. Womanhood was definitely devalued because feminism isn't really for women. And then marriage was part of their desire to crush marriage. And we have it in their own words. So I began the study of feminism. And so I'm kind of an expert on historical feminism, which is kind of funny. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to do it positively. I wanted to help moms become all that they needed to be and all that they could be. And that's why it's called Moms Like Us. Because moms like us think differently. Moms like us have different needs. And we're conservative Christian women. And I'll tell you, it's a wonderful move. And as the conservative movement, people have become awake and not woke. They become awakened to the fact that, oh, motherhood is the ground zero for our country, our families, everything. And so it's been wonderful to watch moms gravitate to their homes and their marriages and wanting them to be what they had always dreamed of. And the feminist movement is just, they lied.
So you mentioned something that I've been hearing more and more about, and that's kind of this idea that feminism was perhaps created or perhaps just helped along and cheerleaded by greedy corporations that want to get women to work. So that's one aspect of it. And the other is getting them to work means they can't have babies. And that's probably an entirely different kind of group or people or industry that's doing that. Well, can you talk a little bit about getting women to work and why that's been such a problem for our culture?
Well, that it was the underlying truth of what they wanted. And when we go back through, and I have lectures and historical things, so if anybody needs proof or anything like that, I've got that. But what happened was it was truly a Marxist theology, and it was women needed to be in the workforce to work for the greater good. But it really wasn't for the greater good of all people. It was for the greater good of the Marxist society. And they wanted to move in that direction. They were called left-wing radicals for a reason. But as the feminist movement moved through, they pretended that they were for women. And they kind of were, but we had other things in place in our government that would have done exactly what they did. So they kind of just hooked on to the civil rights movement, and then they started implementing this thing. It wasn't evil corporations. Corporations were the ones that benefited from so many women coming into the workforce. But it was the feminist movement that drove the ideology and drove the biggest lie of all. You are not enough unless, and then they decided what that was.
Yes.
It was a diabolical con job, and it worked.
And that was fill in the blank, right? You are not valuable unless.
Whatever they could get you to, whatever they could get you to think of on the next Cosmo magazine or even in Women's Day magazine.
Yes. So that simple activity created all these cascading problems of childcare being so expensive and being hard to get good childcare, dual income necessities. It's now inconceivable for most American families to get by without a dual income. And it created, and that allowed them to ruin the economy while they're doing it. They're saying, "Oh, well, you're getting two incomes now, so we'll just create inflation that doesn't, that won't affect you as much because now you have to have dual incomes." And then, of course, the effect on the children, which is, I see three battered victims here. I see the women themselves from feminism. Of course, the men simultaneously have been turned into cowering, simpering fools by the feminist movement. And then lastly, the children, and that's all what's happening in our schools. Talk a little bit more about, your positive viewpoints on men and women and our roles in life and in the world.
Well, I love men. I think men are amazing. And the study of a man is a wonderful thing for a woman to endeavor to know about. But like I said, in the 70s and even in the 80s, they said, oh, but we're all the same. We're the same. We can do exactly the same stuff. We're equal. Well, let me just tell you, I don't do anything or assume anything unless I can measure it up against God's word. And in God's word says we were equally loved, equally created, equally designed in his image, equally made with gifts and talents that through our genders, the world would see him. That's what we were created for. That's why we were created, to male and female. And when God said, let us create man in our own image, that word in Hebrew actually means mankind, two kinds of men. And throughout it, it always lifts women up. So it wasn't the religious part. It wasn't our Christian, Judeo-Christian morals and values. It was definitely a diabolical plan of the enemy that told Eve, did God really say, is he holding out on you? That man back there, he knows it too. So God and the man were against her. In actuality, that was a lie. And so from the very beginning, women, we believed a lie. It doesn't mean we always believe lies and we're kind of smart and savvy. We don't. But knowing that the way you were created was created with purpose and value is a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing to know. And when the feminist movement kept saying, you're like a man, even our clothing changed. We started wearing suits and pants, which I'm all about a good blazer. But I mean, we moved into trying to be men. There is nothing about that is uplifting to women.
It's kind of a replacement theory.
It's dumb theory. It's if you go and do this, and this, then you will be whatever you want to be. No, it's not about what you do. It's who you are. We have to separate who we are from what we do. I'm a woman. I may be a doctor. Okay, maybe I've been given gifts and talents to become a doctor. But if I become a doctor and I want to be a mom and have 5 kids, then there's a conflict there. And I have to be able to make a choice. And the feminist movement set us against home.
I'm so glad you mentioned God's will. It didn't take you too long either. And I'm really happy about that because we share a strong and abiding faith in God. And I guess one of the things that's so disturbing about this is that these people, they're godless people, and that's a shame, and we can always pray for them and hope for a turnaround. Realistically, in my earthly mind, I don't see a turnaround coming amongst these people. They're trying to hurt other women, they're trying to hurt other men, and they're trying to hurt children. And hurting other people.
And those are feminists that are absolutely set. But here's the thing, Bill. Lots of women call themselves feminists. Lots of men call themselves feminists. And we need to really know what we're calling ourselves. I did a lecture just recently called Stop Calling Yourself a Christian Feminist. And it was provocative in its title, I have to admit. But the truth is, if you're going to call something your identity, then you probably should know the root of it and you should know what it is. And once I revealed that, then they were able to see, oh, yeah, that's not really what I am. And here's the thing, Bill, you and I are wanting to make things right in those kind of realms. But the regular woman, the regular college student, the regular mom, she doesn't think about being a feminist, but she doesn't realize that she's been influenced by it, and she's believed lies about it. And that those lies will make her have mistakes that she may regret in the long run. And those women that call themselves feminists and don't really know why, they are the victims because they don't know where to stand. And we have to learn stand. In the Moms Like Us Academy, we have a phrase that motherhood isn't a natural talent. It's a skill, and you can learn it. Well, it's the same thing with being a woman. Yes, it's kind of natural to be a woman, but if you want to be a woman that is influential in her family, in her home and everything, then you're going to have to learn some things. We're supposed to be working out our lives and our gifts and talents. Well, how do we do that when we have kids and we have a husband and we have a mortgage? And how do we do that? And what if we want to stay home? What does that look like? The lie that you cannot stay home with your children and that you are nothing when you do that is the biggest lie that we fight in the Moms Like Us arena.
Is there any difference between feminism in Texas and feminism in New York City or Chicago or LA? Do you suppose it's a more vicious kind of feminism in the big cities, or it's a more subtle, dangerous kind of feminism in Texas? I don't know if you've given that any thought. I was just curious.
I would say that, again, most women would not just have a conversation at dinner that says, I'm a feminist, but they would hold all of the values and core principles that a woman in New York would have, and they would be talking about those things. And so, like I said, the word feminist and feminism is something that's used once in a while, but the way the culture is now with Gen X and Gen Zs, they're not using those words as much. Because they've learned. They're like, hey, this isn't working for them. They're all 35 and they're too old now, and they don't have ovaries, and they didn't marry well because there was hardly any guys left. As it goes and it goes. So I think that it is the same because it's the same spirit that is running rampant in them. Are they more Devil Loves Prada in New York? I think they can be. But like I said, we've all been influenced by feminism, and we need to wake up to the truth of it.
Well, when you mentioned that tragic scenario of the ovaries are not fertile anymore and, their lives, that actually means that feminists have won. And I don't know, it's definitely a Pyrrhic victory. I don't like the idea. Do you suppose? So I keep wondering when some things that are happening in our country right now, it just seems like it's going to implode. But I keep thinking at some point, God has to step in and rain down sulfur on these people who are doing this stuff. I mean, I know that's not your attitude at all, because you are the mistress of the subtle, sweet takedown. I'm not like that. That's how we're different, right? But you spoke that when does God step in? He doesn't wait until the last days and the trial and tribulation, does he?
No, but remember, Bill, there's always a remnant. There's always a remnant. And the very coolest thing is that I've been doing this for 30 years with moms and mentoring them and walking them through to have good marriages and stuff like that through a biblical lens, of course, and my own big mistakes helping. And the thing that I think is the coolest is there's a trend. There's such hope. There's a trend of women that are going home. And I'm writing a book right now, which is why it kind of came up in my head. It's called Going Home: Why Women Are Leaving the Workplace and How You Can Too. Because you can leave there's 64% of the women that are moms will tell you, if I could stay home, I would stay home. And I just want to take them by their sweet little cheeks and say, baby, you can. Let me show you how. And it is possible. But there is a longing because they didn't have it. And now that it was not something that we needed to talk about in the 60s and 70s, that mothers needed to be home with small children because they're vulnerable and we had attachment that we needed to make sure, and nobody loves you like your mother. And then somehow that became parasitical was a word that was thrown around consistently, that it was parasitical to a woman's life to be home with her children. And to tell us that, but yet if we're paying a really good nanny that's from Sweden and we have an au pair, fancy word, then all of a sudden we're cool. But we're paying them to take care of our kids because it's such an important thing. But the person that's actually taking care of their own kid is parasitical. That kind of ticked me off a little bit.